Hello everyone and welcome back to another Factorio base tour. I am Exterminator and thank you for joining me for this one, and we are in for something super special today. You definitely want to sit through this, and especially if you're a belt enthusiast, this is absolutely insane. I have truly, in all of our base tours we've done and stuff, I've never seen something like this, and I don't say that lightly. We've seen a lot of belt bases. This is a belt base, but this is something different. This is a 10k science per minute megabase, obviously, but this is a main bus. And when I say main bus, I mean that literally. This is like what you would see a main bus, but massively sized. This is 10k science per minute in a main bus form. And on top of that, there are no trains. There are no robots for logistics. They used robots to build the base. There's some Logi bots in here, but you can see they're not being used. This is completely belt-based. This is a main bus format, and there are 600 lanes in this main bus in the widest, and there are over 3 million belts in this map. And I'm just going to give you a sneak peek here at the insanity we're about to look at. Look at this monstrosity of a base. This is absolutely incredible. Like I said, I have never done a base tour or personally been in a base that is this size of a main bus. I think maybe the biggest main bus I've ever personally been in was maybe one of my own, where it was like 3k science per minute or something. But this is over 3 times that. And this is wild. So just to give you a sneak peek, we'll go over everything in more detail, but let me just cover a few things. So this base is by Semmel and Honobirn. I hope I pronounced your names correctly, and you left a really nice message for me here. Thank you so much. It is a pleasure of mine to be in this base. And I actually did this. I did a take of this recording already, and then I alt tabbed and my game froze. That's how intense this is. So we are locked in it. We're at 42 UPS, 41. It doesn't, like, we're at game speed 1, but the computer just can't handle it. And I think I have probably the best processor right now for Factorio, so like that's how crazy this is. They actually benchmark it at 35 UPS for them, so I feel fortunate I'm able to even get above 35. But we're just going to kind of start here. There are 11 silos, of course, right, because you need one extra past whatever science per minute you're doing. And you can see, yeah, so we already kind of went over these stats. 3 million plus belt, which is wild. And we kind of just start here. So this is, of course, where the space science comes out. This is where all the ingredients for these silos come in. And we're going to kind of just follow their exit arrows here. And I am going to use a command at some point to zoom me out farther so we can get a better look. Because, like, I can only zoom out this far, and that doesn't even begin to show everything we need to show. But a few things of note here while I kind of walk through the lab area. This does use mods, but it is not game, like, it is not production changing stat or anything like that. It's just quality of life. So they use like a rate calculator. They use like I think they used far reach. They used a few other mods here. If we just take a quick look, here's a mod list. Disco science. It's nothing that would change like production or add crazy new buildings or anything like that. Vehicle snap, belt visualizer, and this has almost 290 hours in it, which honestly is really impressive that they did all this in 290 hours. I know this seems, I mean, this is a lot of time, but to get this much done in that amount of time is pretty crazy to me. I couldn't do it. I mean, there were 2 of them, but still. So that's how much game time we have. It's almost a 300 megabyte save. And then in terms of like commands and ores, there were a few things used. So they started with biters and pollution on, but they did end up turning them off for performance reasons. I completely understand that. Like, the biters at some point just become a nuisance. They're really not any useful part of the game at that point, like when you get this late, and the pollution too, because the only reason to really have it is for the biters. So for performance reasons, I totally get disabling them. They did also use a command to make ore patches infinite. Now they did not like use creative mod or something to specifically spawn in perfect ore patches. These are all natural, as you can probably tell, but they are essentially infinite, which to me doesn't really matter, because once you get to a certain mining prod, which they are already far past at this point, your patches essentially become infinite, right? Like once you're like 1,000% plus mining prod, all your patches have, like 10% of the yield they show, and essentially are infinite, and they're at almost double that. So I don't think it really matters that they did that, because they would basically have that anyway. I think they just did that so that they wouldn't be rebuilding, like spending all their time rebuilding, because that would be an issue once you get to this scale. You know, you would just be spending 75% of your time building outposts and not the base. So I totally get that. But other than that, they didn't like spawn in specific ore patches. They didn't use any crazy game-changing mods or anything like that. So in my mind, for all intents and purposes, this is a vanilla gameplay. And we'll just proceed here through the labs. So yeah, Disco Science. Now, they are using multiple belts, 2 of each, it looks like, or even 3 actually, or more, because they're half. So there's yellow, purple. We have blue and military, and this includes military too, by the way. This is 10k. The spider leg is driving me nuts. This is 10k science per minute of every science, right? And then red, green, and then space, more space. And if we look at the production, this is one of the most solid 10k science per minute I have seen. Like, I don't mean that to, you know, degrade any other bases. I kind of mostly refer to my bases because they fluctuate a little bit sometimes. But over 10 hours, we have a solid 10k a minute of every single science, which is so great to see. It looks like military is probably not here, but I would say the reason for that is because they probably didn't research military science within the last 10 hours, so you're obviously not going to be producing it at that point, but it is on the belts, and they did build it to scale, so it can do 10k military. We could even change the research here to demonstrate, so like, this is every single science, robot follower counts. We're going to go ahead and cancel this, and then just do this, and or not. Did I break this? I'm not quite sure what happened here. So they're using a research queue mod. I'm not entirely sure how to work this, because it says it's here, but then it's like not. So we may not be able to see, but trust me, it does do 10k of military. So yeah, you can see it looks like maybe in total 4 belts of everything, or 8. Because we have 4 here, 4 here, so 8. I did look at this beforehand, but there's so much to look at. I couldn't examine every single thing. So we just come up. So the sciences do come in their own belts, and then we mix them here with this cool little belt mixing thing. And then we come over. So to give perspective, this is like probably what I would consider a normalist sized main bus, right? You know, we got what, 4, 8, 16, we've got what, like 24, 30 lanes or so in total once you come up to here. And that's like what, like a normal main bus size? Well, this is just their science. This is literally the completed packs is the size of a normal main bus, right? And you can see how small it is compared to all the rest of their stuff, which is absolutely nuts. But we're actually kind of going the wrong way, to be honest with you. So we are moving super slow. And my game froze again, I think. Last time it did recover, so just bear with me for a second. It may come back. Yeah, so here we go. Apologies for that. Hopefully it didn't cut the recording. I don't know. I think I'm encoding with my my GPU, so maybe that's the problem. But if we get some hiccups here, just bear with me. I'm going to try not to cut the recording again. And yeah, so we're just going to walk over here. We were kind of starting at the wrong end. That's the finished end of things. I want to come over to the smelting. And we'll kind of walk over. I'm staying zoomed in just as we go over, but we can kind of see as we pass. I mean, good gosh. Like, we got, what is this, 8 lanes, I think? So 8, 16, that's 32 lanes, I believe, of iron. And I don't even think that's all of it, because we get even more over here. So these crossover, I mean, look at the crossovers here. We have so many. What's even crazier to me is the, like, 16 lanes blue belt of steel. We know how much, like, how big of smelting, how much iron you need for steel. I mean, you need 5 times. But it's 16 belts, blue belts of steel. And we're crossing, look at all this coal, all this stone. Holy moly. So this is plastic. I can't even count the amount of belts of plastic. I don't even know. What was probably, what, like 48 or something at least? Maybe even like 50 something. Oh, and this is steel. So that wasn't even the whole steel. This is the whole steel. We have 8, 16. Sorry, I know that's kind of jarring. 32 lanes of steel. And I don't even want to count this iron. It is probably like 64, 70 belts, 80 belts of iron here. I mean, I can measure, I suppose, by coming all the way down I know this is kind of hard to maybe look at, and I'm sure it's compressing terribly, but I'll get out of this. Oh, there's 128 blue belts of iron. Okay, so I was nowhere near close. 128 blue belts of iron. I would assume probably close to that in copper, maybe a little less. And we can kind of just trace this along here. So we have smelting essentially up and down. This is the power to which we'll look at. But all the outposts, so if we start all the way back at the origin of the resources, we have the outposts, and you can see, like, with the mining prod, you don't really need much. These have speed modules in them. They're not even beaconing them, and it's filling blue belts, essentially. So it looks like it's 4 miners to fill a blue belt, which makes sense. I mean, this mining prod is insane. You're getting, like, 19 total ore pieces, essentially, for every mining cycle, and they're speed moduled. So, yeah, this fills a blue belt pretty good. And then that's really all we're going to look at for the outposts, because they're pretty much just going to all be like that. The oil is well, I'm not sure, they haven't tapped this particular oil, but, it's going to be pretty crazy as well. And then we come over and we go to the smelting. So if we actually look at the builds, I'm going to try to find one that is maybe not on an ore patch. So this is, I would say, a fairly standard belt-based smelter. I think in my belt megabase I did years ago, I built something very similar to this, if not this exactly. I'm not saying they copied me, but I think we just had the same idea in mind. And when I did it, it certainly wasn't the first time either. But yeah, very standard. 8 beacon, of course, prod mods in the smelters, speed mods in the beacons. So we have 9.4 craft speed with 20% prod, and thought our game was gonna freeze again. And then it comes down here, fills these belts. So yeah, this is probably what all the smelters look like. Pretty standard, but it is efficient mostly. Now they did leave another note that they didn't really build this base taking performance and efficiency as like the top priority. Some megabasers make that their top priority. That wasn't their priority here. And honestly, they say, they kind of just started this as like a main bus and grew it, and they didn't really have a goal in mind. They didn't have a 10k science per minute goal in mind to begin with, and it kind of just grew to that, which I think is really cool. I imagine there's probably a lot of like reworks and revamps of things going on. I don't know what's happening. My computer's not liking this, but we're going to try to get through this. Bear with me, hopefully before my computer catches fire here. So, yeah, that's what the smelters look like. I don't just, I'm a little worried my computer may not make it through this, but, so I'm not going to look at more of the smelters necessarily, because I think they're all the same build. But we're just going to kind of come down here, and all of this is smelting. So the smelting starts here and goes all the way up. And we didn't look at the steel, so we can look at the steel. This is pretty similar. It looks like, surprisingly, they're not actually doing direct insertion. I say surprisingly, not because it's bad not to necessarily, but I just always do direct insertion, so it's kind of interesting to see it not being done. But they do have it all in the same build. So you have the iron plate being made here, and then you have it just going directly into steel, which is a pretty straightforward method. You can see it just passes directly through, so it makes the build super easy. Of course, getting compressed blue belt out of this. And then if we look, that's more of that. So this smelting comes all the way up, all the way over here. And then we have some other builds over here. So we start getting some additional builds here. So we have our oil, which is, first off, this looks really cool. This is a really cool design. You can see they really tried to have like symmetry here and stuff, which is super nice. We have coal. This is 8 lanes of coal, I believe, coming in. And then we have the refineries. Now these are going to be like 16 beacon, I believe. Yeah, so we have 19 effect sources, the 16 beacons plus the 3 modules in here. 8.55 craft speed, 30% prod. This is just cranking out the liquids here. And then we have plastic being made here. Also a very nice build. They did a good job getting the beacons to look good and have consistent beacon coverage too. It looks like there's 11 beacons on this, because once you add in the modules there. So this is a really, really nice oil build. One of the nicest I've seen, certainly better than I could build, if I'm being honest. I don't know that I would have the patience to build an oil build that looks this nice. Everything looks like it has its place, and it's organized, it's clean, and they try to minimize, they tried to underground all this and stuff where they could to make it look nice. Minimal tanks used, I would say, which, I usually prefer. I don't personally like using a bunch of tanks. I would say at this scale, using like 4 or 5 or so is totally fine. Makes sense when you're working at this scale. And then, you know, just the same, so we have more cracking over here. Of course, we're cracking basically everything into Petro, I would assume, aside from what may be needed for like lube, which I think is probably done in another build. Yeah, I didn't think I saw it here earlier. So the lube is going to be done probably on site where it's needed. And we have how many? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 of these massive oil builds. And I do really quick want to look at the production graph again, because we didn't actually look at the other stats. So they're making over 700,000 iron per minute, 570 copper per minute. My game's frozen again, but that's fine. 333,000 green circuits a minute, which is wild. And then, yeah, I don't really know why I'm getting these hitches. Again, I do apologize, guys, but we got to get through this. So 95,000 iron a minute, which is absolutely crazy. If we look at the all-time graph, over 3 billion iron, 2.5 billion copper, 1.5 billion circuits, well over a quarter billion red circuits, plastic, you can see there. Pretty crazy. So I'm going to kind of zoom through here. This is just really... Now, it's interesting how they zigzag it. I feel like that may be for alignment or space reasons, or maybe just aesthetics. I mean, it actually looks really good for being like zigzag belts. It actually looks super good. I think, I'm trying to think in my head, it may conserve space too, or... Well, I mean, part of it is because, like, the smelters are all aligned, so it looks like they want to align the smelters, maybe. And then had to push this out as more and more was added. I don't think they left a note for that. I just find it interesting because, like, this part's straight and this part's zigzag, but this actually looks really nice. Having the kind of belts go, you know, right and then up and then over again. And they do have a ton of roboports here. I don't really even want to know how much roboports they have. They have over 8,000 roboports. Holy moly. And this base takes 68 gigawatts, by the way. I didn't mention that yet, but this is one of the higher power consumers of a base I've seen in my tours. 68 gigawatts of power, and it is all nuclear too. So like I said, they didn't really purposely go for performance, so they went nuclear on this beast, and this is the nuclear builds. Like, so we have all this processing, which is actually which is a lot, right? Like, you get a lot from Corex once you get it going. So this is a ton of processing. And then they have these nuclear builds, which are, it looks like, so yeah, they did like probably landfill on a lake. I think they had water fill, they said, which is fine. I mean, that's coming in, is that coming in 2.0? I forget. But yeah, so this is the standard, like, you know, this is the best way to build a nuclear build, because, you know, in 2x, because you get your neighbor bonus, and this comes around. So we're just going to quickly, hopefully not break my game doing this. So this is sections of 130 reactors, and I'm not going to even try to measure in fear of breaking something, but this is, I would say, I don't know, geez, close to 1,000 maybe steam turbines. I mean, there's 16,000 in total. So there's how many of these builds? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these builds. So each one has a little over 3,000 steam turbines. So there's actually like, or 1,500 per like side of this, which is absolutely crazy making this. So we actually look, one thing I want to look at too is how many fuel cells are we using every minute. So they're using 180 fuel cells every minute. And keep in mind, these things last for 200 seconds a piece. So that's pretty crazy. They have to make 180 plus, or almost 180 of these every single minute to keep the power on in their base, which is pretty incredible. So if we come up, and I was going to use this, I'm going to, maybe at the end I'll use a full zoomed out command, but I'm really worried now it's going to break things. It's odd, before I was recording, obviously I didn't have issues, so I think the recording is just really straining my PC right now. But if we come up here, we're going to look at these other builds. So we covered smelting, we covered oil, we did cover the labs and the rockets. I do want to look at things like circuits and the science builds, especially at this scale. You know, things like purple science would be really interesting. you know, how they do like the rail production and all that other stuff on them, you know, effectively. So we're just gonna cross this crazy bus here. It's like each one is like crossing a river. This is just ridiculous, and this is a good way to kind of just get a size of scale too. I mean, we are at below 40 UPS, but we do have 3 exoskeletons in here, right? And you can just see how long it's taking us. I don't even know if we're halfway across at this point. But we're gonna come up here, and it's built on both sides. Oh dear, I have a really long way to go. I think I might turn back. Or maybe just stay here. I have so far to go. This is insane storage. I mean, I have 2 million bluebells just in the storage. On top of the like 3 million that are on the ground, which is absolutely wild. They have almost 100,000 speed 3 modules for some reason. And then if we come over, so we have green circuits, red circuits. I'm trying to find like the origin of some of this stuff. Okay, so this is where we were. This is red science. So if we start here, pretty straightforward. Making the gears first. Red science obviously below that. And we have 4 times, however many this is, probably, oh dear, probably, I don't know, I want to say what, like 60 maybe? 40? 42, right? So we have 4 times 42. It's like 164 or something of these. And then all the gears, pretty, you know, red is the most straightforward, pretty simple there. We have rocket fuel being made here, rows and rows and rows of these. Again, very clean. All these builds are nice looking, clean, you know, concise. So that just goes on down. We have solid fuel made below it, actually, and then the oil for it here. So the oil's made specifically for this build at the build. Obviously, that is smart rather than piping it over. And they're not using a train, so they couldn't even train it over. And then we have green science, which, holy moly, is even longer. I bet, yeah, the others are even longer than this still. But again, pretty simple. We have a full belt of belts and a full belt of inserters, blue belt, mind you. So for each one of these, you know, like normally you would maybe share a belt, but they just need so much throughput. They have to have a whole belt of each one. So that's there. And then in terms of, I am curious. So yeah, they are doing direct insert, which makes sense. The ratio is almost 1-to-1 once you beacon a module green circuits. It's no longer 2-to-3 or 3-to-2, sorry. And then these are being made here, so gears are made here all locally, which makes sense. Their bus is already insane enough. I can see why maybe they wouldn't want to put gears on the bus. And this is spitting out the science, which we kind of already saw those belts. But just for green science, I mean, geez, we got 12 belts of iron for green science alone. And then actually maybe more than, oh, even more than that, plus 4 more. So we got 16 for green science. More rocket fuel, grenades. So this is their insane military build. This is walls out the wazoo here. And then we got grenades. So many grenades. Man, I love the side of this. There's a lot of trees you could kill. And then we're not even down out of the grenades yet. And we have piercing ammo, of course. And then we have, this is a, you know, it's 1-to-1 ratio here. And then we have the military, which goes super far down. Now, as we start getting up in sciences, it will be really interesting to see how they handle when you need more than like 2 belts input. I mean, they do have room for it. So we're frozen again, but we'll just stick through here. So we have piercing ammo, and then we have grenades, and then the walls come through here. So they do have, oh dear, they do have a belt here of a room to put another belt at least for if they need another material like for the future sciences, which I would imagine they probably do. We have this absolutely ridiculous engine build, since everything is built like in the spot at like at site, on site, and in line. These builds get super long. So green circuits actually are made on site for the red circuits, which I don't see super often, but you know, this does work pretty well, actually. And then we have a ton of materials flowing through here. So we have blue through the middle on each of these, and we have sulfur, and then iron, and then steel, and that just persists through all of that. And then we come down, we have more oil here making the sulfur, of course. Come down, gears, massive engine build, all these flowing through. And then if we come down to blue science, so blue science has red flowing through, blue flowing out. They're using priority splitting here to get the sides correct. And then we have this kind of zigzag through here of engines, a full belt of engines. You don't see that very often. Sulfur 2 coming through. And then they are using some nice belt weaving here. So belt weaving is a super good tactic you can use, and I'm sure they use it even more in other builds that we'll see. But red and blue belt weaving here, just to get them in like the same plane. And then this comes all the way down to here, right? So that's blue science. And then low density structures, which would be for probably yellow science. These are actually crossing over. Oh, no, that's copper. Sorry. These spit out. Where do these spit out even? Oh, in the middle. Okay. And then they come over this way and come over. So, oh my goodness. 4 full blue belts of low density structures. That is expensive. That is an expensive set of belts. So this comes over and goes up here to more stuff. So if we can transition, this can be a good transition to the other side. So we have sulfur and sulfuric acid. This is a sulfuric acid build here. We are making green circuits. Again, it is a 1-to-1, and these are basically 12 beacon. This one has an extra one, which is fine, because I think it may actually, it's not quite to 1-to-1 if you do or this is 8 beacon, sorry, 12 effect sources. It's not quite 1-to-1 normally, so I think having the extra beacon here would actually make it basically 1-to-1 if I remember correct. But this is just pumping out circuits like crazy. I mean, it's how we're making over 250,000 circuits a minute. And then they're sending some in here through into red circuits, and then even more being made. You can see the belts just growing wider and wider here. This is so nice to look at. I love seeing full belts of green circuits. And so it looks like maybe the green circuits are just made on site, which makes sense. You can imagine how many dang belts you would need to put all these green circuits on the bus. And yeah, I don't really recall seeing green circuits on the bus, so it does make sense. Sorry, that's probably really not pleasant. And then we make blue circuits over here. So we have speed module 1s, right, coming through. Holy moly, we have we have what, probably 12 blue belts of level 1 speed modules coming up, and then over, and then we're making blue circuits. So this is pretty interesting. This is not really a lot of direct insertion aside from the wire into the greens, but we're doing green and then belting it, and then this is getting green from these. Okay, so this comes over, goes underneath to blues. It's interesting they have this huge space between them. I'm thinking that's probably just to make the belt routing better, because otherwise this would be like curving over, I think. But they don't really need a ton here. So they have this, and then this just kind of comes over these. So okay, maybe it's just the end one. These are all kind of spaced closer together, and you can see the green circuit slowly running out as we go, but it's being supplemented all the way to the end here. They're using some nice side loading here to get the blues where on the side they need to be. So that's our blue build, and then these come down. Super expensive trek of belts here. These come over, and holy moly. So we have 5 total-ish, 4.5 belts of blue circuits coming over, which is then kind of divided up. So they're actually like unmerging, or yeah, just splitting it up basically. So it comes over here and then goes up, and we're making the rocket control units, which are pretty straightforward. The build is going to look similar, I think, to like the green science build, where it's just full belt of each on the side. It shoots out the middle here, and then this comes over, and we look at our solar panel production and accumulator build, which of course is only for satellites because they didn't use solar for power. So this entire thing is just to make satellites, right? You need like 10 of them a minute. So this is just cranking out satellites, or parts for the satellites rather, like crazy. So that's all the stuff there basically for rockets. So if we come back over here, this is purple science. So we have red circuits, huge red circuit section here. Jeez, it comes like more than halfway down. And then we have furnaces. Jeez, 2 full belts of furnaces. Like, when do you see that? Steel circuits and brick over here, right? And I'm actually kind of surprised they're getting away with only 1 belt of bricks. I wonder if maybe they send more. somewhere else? Because this actually takes more bricks than the other things. Where's the, I mean, you really don't need that many for blue science, right? Or for purple science, they only take one piece, so. And then they spit out like 3 packs. And then we have circuits here, and then this comes down to the modules, of course. Again, don't need a ton of those. Now, the rail was something I wanted to look at, because this is always interesting since rail is so material intensive. We actually, I mean, we have rail like all across here. Holy moly. So, we're sending in a belt of steel, a belt of stone, a belt of sticks. We're making the sticks and belting them over, and then feeding this, and they're doing a lot of like splitter merging and priorities and undergrounds here to get this to work. So, holy cow. This is, so this is interesting. So they have these undergrounds that don't actually do anything. I'm somewhat unsure of the reason for this. Because I don't think, like, this wouldn't be preventing anything from, like, merging here, I don't think. I feel like I'm probably just missing something, and you guys can point it out to me. But, I'm not 100% sure about these two. Because even without this one, like, this is a space back, so it wouldn't merge into this splitter. Yeah, I'm a little unsure what that is. The game's unsure, too, apparently. It gave up. I think we'll be done with the video before we get another freeze, probably, once we get out of this one. So we're making a ton of rail, and you can see these 2 belts of rail feeding through, and then the modules, of course, in the furnaces here, coming down, and then the purple science. And then if we move all the way over and up, we get more blue circuits. It's going to be like the same build as the other one. But this is blue circuits coming up, and then we have low density structures here, which I believe we did already look at one build. This is feeding in 4 belts of copper through the whole build. It looks like each one's pulling from 2 belts, and then plastic and steel, and then LDS out the middle, right? And then come over, and we have yellow science, which is quite a different build, actually. So we have like batteries here. We have some copper being made here for the batteries. An insane amount of copper, just, well, it's not just for batteries, I guess it's for green circuits too. And then, yeah, so this is a different kind of build. They situated it a different way, so it's not long ways, and then it's kind of split. It looks really nice. Again, they did a great job making this look super clean, symmetrical when they could. So we have pipe and gears going into engines, which then spit out and share a belt with green circuits, which then come over to electric engines, fitting the lube in here as well. And then, I mean, they use basically every single space they could. They have a little bit here, but we are then making the frames, of course, which are for the yellow science. And then it's just a little bit of yellow science on the end of each one of these. You know, yellow science is expensive, but it's actually pretty straightforward, pretty simple, all things considered. So we have the engines and the robo frames made direct, and then the low density structures, as well as the blue circuits, are of course belted in because they're made right above it. And then this comes in and spits out the side here and back up, and then we get this insane, like, almost 4 full blue belts of yellow science coming through, and that's of course the same for all the other packs. And that pretty much does it. We look over here, we can see kind of what an all underground thing would look. So it looks like they did that. Yeah, I clearly don't know how to work the research thing. Maybe if I cancel that first and then add this. No, it doesn't like that. It's definitely the mod they're using for the research queue, but that's fine. And then, yeah, I think that's actually, yeah, I was just saying, we didn't actually look at the satellite. Do they have the satellites spitting out here? Yeah, so here they are. So obviously this is not a full belt. It's only 10 a minute, but, you know, they need a lot of materials going in. And I think we covered basically everything. Excuse me, I'm kind of starting to lose my voice. But this is just absolutely crazy. This has been a pleasure. Like I said, I've never been in a base like this. I've been in belt mega bases before. I've been in bus bases before. I've never been in a massive belt main bus mega base before until now. And man, thank you guys so much for showing me this. This is, you know, and asking me to do a tour of it. This is just absolutely incredible. I have to give massive props to doing this in the first place, engineering it, having the patience. I would not have the patience for this. I would give up, like, probably partway through the smelters, maybe. This is just crazy. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. Again, I apologize for the freezes. Hopefully it didn't like really mess up the recording or anything. It looked like the recording was still ticking along during those, so hopefully it should be fine. But yeah, let me know your thoughts down below. I would love to hear your thoughts with this. I mean, I'm completely wowed, and all that. I think I showed basically everything we needed to: game time, production, stats and bonuses, and all that stuff. And I believe that should do it. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you for sticking out if you made it to the end here. And if you did enjoy and are as impressed as I am with this base, definitely leave a like on the video. It's appreciated, and lets more people see this amazing creation. And then, if you're new and are not subscribed, feel free to do so to see more crazy stuff like this. And until next time, guys, I look forward to seeing you all, and do take care.